Good morning. Economics is the study of scarcity. Microeconomics, macro, managerial economics, it's all about dealing with the problems of scarcity. Families, companies, governments, countries, there's never enough money or people or raw materials or capital or time to do everything you want to do. So you have to specialize, try to make optimum use of the resources you do have, and collaborate and trade with others so you can get more of what you do want. Consider a small but highly developed country like Denmark compared to the United States. The US has more land, more people, and more natural resources. So the United States will hit those limits of scarcity higher and later than Denmark will. But compared to the United States, China's limits are much higher still. 4 times the population, 10 times as many science and technology and engineering graduates, billions of dollars of new capital coming in every day instead of going out. China owns all the world's supply chains instead of having to build them. And so when American politicians or business industry groups talk about our need to better develop our semiconductor industry, or our car factories, or green energy, or pharmaceuticals, or infrastructure, or all the other industries that we're now struggling to compete in, the first questions are, where are all the people going to come from to do this work? Because we only have so many new engineering graduates to go around. And where is the money going to come from, given that we're running giant twin deficits of government and household spending? These constraints are hitting everywhere and all at once in all industries, which is why we have these headlines here in the shipbuilding industry from just the past few months. The United States Navy Secretary is going to Japan and South Korea and pitching them on the idea of taking over our old shipyards in the US to build ships there for our Navy. All these articles are about the same, so we'll focus on 2. This is the American Journal of Transportation, a trade paper. Carlos Del Toro is meeting with shipbuilders in Japan and Korea and wants them to build new shipbuilding operations in the United States. Our industry is a great opportunity to partner with more shipbuilders. He wants the most advanced shipbuilders in the world, presumably the non-Chinese ones, to open US-owned subsidiaries and invest in commercial shipyards. Here you might notice a problem right away, which is that he's asking for Japanese companies to open a US subsidiary. We won't cover it this time, but US laws restrict foreign companies, perhaps even especially Japanese ones, from owning shipyards in the United States. It's called the Jones Act, and we'll do that problem another day. Del Toro goes on, there are several US shipyards that were built decades ago and closed decades ago, but they are perfect for dual-use shipbuilding. Dual use is for military and civilian applications. In his example, they can be used to build Aegis guided missile destroyers or green energy civilian ships. These investments will create high-paying American jobs. We need to find even more facilities so Japan and Korea can send their advanced technology to the US and train American workers there. Japanese and Korean companies can build ships faster and more efficiently with fewer man hours compared to US companies. There are lots of problems with US shipbuilding, most importantly that we don't do the shipbuilding anymore. The United States barely shows up at all on this pie chart of global shipbuilding. And even though the US military spends more money than the next 10 countries combined, that doesn't mean we can build ships. US shipyards are struggling to build 2 destroyers a year. Last year, Congress voted to build another one, a 3rd, but we can't even build a 2. Everyone is struggling with skilled labor. Everyone is struggling with supply chain problems. This is Mike McCord, Undersecretary of Defense, and he's asking the same questions here that the Japanese and the Koreans will want answers to. If American shipyards don't have enough skilled labor, and we don't have the supply chains to build 2 Navy ships a year, let alone 3, what can Japan do about those problems? Over a decade-long period, The GAO reviewed 10 classes of Navy ships and found persistent and worsening problems. We have chronic part shortages, so we take them from one ship and use them on another. A spike in casualty reports, maintenance delays. China seems to be facing none of those issues at present. They are the largest shipbuilders in the world. Their Navy is already the biggest. The US Navy has under 300 ships and submarines. China's at 370 now, and they'll be at 440 in 5 years. And they're building them much faster. The American shipbuilders can't hire enough workers. The industry is struggling to compete with other industries in pay. This is all in the same article. Our Secretary of the Navy is saying to the Japanese and Koreans that we need them to invest in US shipyards, as if we have lots of surplus labor just sitting around waiting for something to do. But it isn't so. It's possible that robotics and AI can solve some of the manpower shortages problem, but Japanese companies can do that without leaving Japan. Breaking defense goes in a different direction and gets deeper into some of the specific problems like the Jones Act and Navy regulations. Just a small group of companies in the United States make warships, and that's where these companies make all their money. That's different compared to Japan and Korea, where their companies build civilian and military vessels, and that helps with their manpower issues. It also means they can invest money differently and enjoy economies of scale that US companies don't have. They have a more diverse and predictable revenue stream, and they can build according to global industry demands instead of the demands of just one customer, which is the US Navy. Here they use Denmark as an example. Their new guided missile frigate cost $355 million to build. Our Constellation class frigate will cost at least 3 times that. Denmark is a high labor cost country, so that's not where the savings are coming from. It's here. Some of the production was outsourced to Poland, some materials came from scrap, and they waited until after commissioning to do a lot of the testing, which is all different from US Navy procedure. So why can't we do things that way is a good question. And the answer is that the objective for the Pentagon, and especially for the Navy contractors, is not to build lots of good ships affordably. It's to build a small number of ships at extremely high prices. That's where the money is. Why build 4 frigates for $1 billion if you can make the same money by building just 1? And this is why, in the end, it just doesn't make sense for the Japanese or the Koreans to come over. Hanwha is a South Korean company, and they just invested in the Philly shipyards to do maintenance and repair contracts. But it's unclear what benefits there would be for them to invest in new shipyard capacity in the US for new hull construction. Their analysts suggest here that Japan's and Korea's discussions with the United States Navy are motivated by improving or maintaining strong relations with the US. But from their point of view, the business case just isn't there. After all, any American company can put in some money and buy up some of these old shipyards and start building ships. But they're going to face the same problems that led to the closures in the first place. We don't have enough people to do the work. There is an old joke from the Cold War era that relates to all of this. A US Air Force officer was told to write up a funding request to give to Congress. And he wrote up a long report arguing for big funding increases, which would develop technology which would be helpful in a hypothetical fight against the Russians. The Secretary of the Air Force didn't like the report, and he explained that the enemy of the US Air Force is not the Russian Air Force, it's the US Navy. All the senators and all the congressmen from coastal cities and coastal states love to give money to the Navy because that's money for their districts and it's jobs for their voters. He said, write the report again and explain how this money is going to create good jobs in the rest of the country. So those senators and congressmen will give the Air Force the money. That's how the system works. And that's why the US military spends so much more money than the next 10 countries, but can't build the ships. Because it's not about building ships. We don't have the people or the supply chains or even the shipyards to build ships. It's about spending lots of money. And that's one thing the United States still does better than anyone else. This is Ningbo in Zhejiang province. Be good.
Mayors and police in our town, the governors and kings and presidents. We ask for a revival in this part of the world. Did your children, did your church